Well, every Saturday we do our best to give you the tools to make the smart bets for tomorrow's NFL games. And we're starting things off with the co-host of the Bet the Board podcast, a professional Vegas sports bettor. Payne Insider joins us. Payne, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How's everything going tonight?
All is going well here. I think a lot of Jets fans are happy with where this team is, but I think a lot of Giants fans are still trying to figure out what this team is. They've got the Falcons this week, and clearly the Giants have some explosive weapons on offense. In fact, over the past 3 games, they're averaging more than 6 yards per play, and they've had 11 days off. Meanwhile, flip side is Atlanta is really banged up. They're giving up 32 points a game on the defensive side of things. Is 4.5 too big of a line for a 2-win Falcons team?
It could be, and you hate to state the obvious because we can all look at our odds screen and see the Giants took large money this week. But I think the process is interesting here, Steve. This was another game where pro bettors manipulated the market early in the week. They took Atlanta from -3.5 all the way out to as high as 6.5 before ultimately coming in over the top on the New York Giants, +6.5, +6. They're even taking the G-men at low as 4.5. And I think there's a few reasons for that, and it's shocking, but it revolves around the Giants' offense, as crazy as that sounds. Eli Manning, we know he hates pressure. The Eli face that's trending on social media these days is both hilarious and real. But they're going against an Atlanta defense on Monday night. 28th in adjusted sack rate. They don't get after the quarterback. You look at where Eli likes to throw the ball. It's primarily short into Saquon. And when you look at Dan Quinn's defensive system, the Falcons have allowed the most running back passes 3 straight years. You're now without Deion Jones, the best cover linebacker in the NFL, Keanu Neal, Ricardo Allen. I think Barkley should have a field day. We know Pat Shurmur likes using his backs in the throw game. Evan Ingram also returns for this game. He's a matchup nightmare in the middle of the field. And when you look at specifically at passes thrown in the middle of the field against Atlanta's defense, whether it's short, intermediate, or deep, teams are completing 77% of those throws. Pro bettors think Eli gets on track for one night, and because of that, the Giants cover.
Well, and where would they be without Saquon Barkley? He is pretty much their entire offense. How about the Patriots? Favored by 2.5 over the Bears. Now, the Patriots 3-0 over their last 3 games, and they're averaging 39 points per game in those wins. But their bad losses have come on the road, and they've been averaging 15 points a game there. Here's Mitch Trubisky. He's got 9 touchdowns. He's got 1 interception over his last 2 games. And listening to your podcast this week, despite that stinker against the Dolphins last week, you think the Bears still have an elite defense.
I do, Steve. And when you look at New England, though, it seems like they've gotten back on track. And you would think Tom Brady would be poised to continue that, but I don't like any of the defenses they've played the last 3 weeks at home. You have the Dolphins, the Colts, the Chiefs defense. No one's going to confuse either of those defenses with the Big Blue Wrecking Crew. And now you're going back on the road. You mentioned 0-2. They're playing against the most efficient defense in the NFL, despite what happened last week. I can tell you, Vic Fangio's defense, if you've read some player quotes this week, they were embarrassed after letting Brock Osweiler torch them. They're ticked off. They're also going to be getting their starting cornerback back, Prince Amukamara. And the one key injury I think to monitor here is for the Patriots' offensive line. Their starting right tackle, Marcus Cannon, is out. That's exactly where Khalil Mack lines up. And I think pro bettors also like the way the Bears' offense is trending. Trubisky completing over 70% of his throws, has a 122 passer rating on attempts of 20 or more yards down the field. I think the one interesting nugget here is Matt Nagy. He's, his mentor, Andy Reid. Both their offenses have fared very well against Belichick's defense, 40 or more points in 3 of the last 4 meetings. And I do kind of just want to caution your listeners here. It's 2.5 now. There's not a lot of value in that number because we made this game pick 'em. But if this trends back towards 3 on game day, there's certainly some value on the Bears at that number.
Let's talk about the Ravens, 2.5-point favorites to New Orleans. The Ravens coming home after 3 straight road games. This defense allows 3.7 yards per play at home, and their offense is better than what a lot of people think. Meanwhile, you've got a Drew Brees who has struggled on the road, and the Saints are getting 2.5. It sounds inviting, but is this a bad spot for them?
I think you nailed it. You nailed it perfectly. I can't wait for this game, Steve. I'm anxious to see what the Saints offense can do against the Ravens defense. This is good on good. The one interesting thing, though, as elite as the Saints offense has been, fourth in offensive efficiency, they've actually faced the easiest schedule of opposing defenses in the NFL. Now you get Baltimore, right? Number one in both rushing and passing success rate defense. They get after the quarterback, and as great as Drew Brees is, he's one of the GOATs. But you can make him less effective with pressure up the middle. He's 5'11". We saw that against the Browns defense. They gave him some trouble with early pressure in the middle of the field. And on the other side of the ball, you mentioned the Ravens offense. In my mind as well, I think they're better than people think, 13th in efficiency. It comes against the third toughest schedule of defenses. Now you get New Orleans defense. It's a step down in class. They've allowed 55% of passes to grade successful. What I can tell you is on Thursday afternoon, pro bettors came out, laid the Ravens on the money line minus 135. That's why we're trending towards the key number of 3, despite the public being on Drew Brees and the Saints.
You can get his download and full podcast. It is called Bet the Board, Payne Insider. Thanks so much, man.
Have a great night, Steve.
All right, so let's turn to our guest contributor now, and you can follow him on Twitter as the old man who bets. Jeff Sheesby joins us once again in studio. How's things, my friend?
Things are great, Steve. Thanks for having me back.
Well, no problem, man. And I want to pick things up kind of where we left off here with Payne and start off with that Saints game. It seems a lot of people love to use cumulative historical stats. But then how do you weight that against the trends of what a team is doing recently?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The one historical trend that I'm hot on, as we were last week, is Mother Nature. This weekend is going to be windy, and the winds are going to be swirling. And Joe Flacco, historically, with winds over 5 miles per hour, the under has been hitting at over 60%.
Wow. They measure it as low as 5 miles an hour has an impact on the game. I understand 10, 20 miles an hour has an impact, but even single-digit mile per hour has an impact on the game.
Yeah, and to double down on that, when it's over 10 miles per hour, Flacco is 11-2 with the under, something that we should definitely watch out. And I think another really interesting point for the game is going to be the second half line. Obviously, we don't know what that is yet, but Harbaugh historically, looking at recency bias and then obviously the history, has covered over 56% on second half trends. And this year alone, the Ravens outscored opponents 62-15 in the second half. So that seems like a little bit of both history and recency, and something that we can potentially capitalize on.
Okay, so speaking of some of these trends, the Jaguars have not looked good recently. They're still favored by 4 over Houston. Do you think the public is still a believer in Jacksonville, or are they just not buying that Houston has won 3 straight games?
Yeah, another great question. I think that Vegas putting out -4 is a really strong line for Jacksonville. Obviously, I've bought low on them in the last 2 weeks and gotten burned, but I'm going to buy low on Jacksonville one more time.
All right. Jets and Vikings over-under is at 46. The Jets have scored more than 40 points twice this year. 4 of the 6 games they've scored more than 30 points. But the under is getting all of the money. That's where the majority of the money is landing. What is the reason for that?
Yeah, great question. Of course, we're going to follow the money on this one. And this boils back down to Mother Nature one more time. I think, tomorrow morning, instead of watching your pregame NFL, you need to be watching your local weathercast. Yeah. Winds are supposed to be up to 16 miles per hour. Again, anything over 10 historically in the NFL has the under has hit at a 56% clip. I think more importantly, the Vikings are really going to game plan for, stopping the run with the Jets. Darnold, I've been super impressed with him so far. I think he's a great kid. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's going to be a great NFL player one day. But more importantly, he's only been scoring touchdowns at 30% when inside the red zone, which is great for Jason Meyer owners around the world. But ultimately, I think will be better for the under.
You sounded like every scout scouting Sam Darnold coming into the NFL. He's going to be a good one day. But I tell you what, that's the whole thing. It's about accumulating as much information, as much knowledge as possible, and trying to turn that into the smartest bets. You can get his free advice on Twitter using the old man who bets. Jeff Sheesby, thank you so much, man.
Steve, thank you.
All right, stick around. We'll be back after this.